Hello and welcome to Postgres FM, a weekly show about all things PostgreSQL. I am Michael, founder of PG Mustard. This is my co-host Nikolai, founder of Postgres AI. Hey Nikolai, how's it going?
Hi Michael, everything is all right. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So this week it was my choice and I have picked the topic of Postgres online communities, partly because when I was new to Postgres, I would have loved this kind of conversation as to if I've got a question, if I've got like a deeply technical question, where should I post it or how should I post it? There's so many online forums, communities, social media sites that I found it quite daunting to kind of know where were people, what kind of things worked well in different places, that kind of thing. So I thought I'd bring that and see. And I know we're kind of on slightly different social networks or where we tend to spend more of our time. So I'd be really interested in your views on why you like the ones that you like, that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, well, first of all, we exclude offline communities, right?
Yeah.
And for example, long ago in Russia, I was organizing meetups, but then we had a rise in 2014 and 15, 16, and then I saw decline. And I saw decline in the Bay Area where I moved around the same time before that. So I was visiting both places and I saw a decline of this kind of offline communities on both parts of the world. And I still don't understand why, because at the same time, front-enders had huge meetups. And at some point I decided to move fully online, all my attention and focus and activities. And, you know, last time I stopped going to conferences. So I like online, because online you can communicate asynchronously. This is the key, right? You can think and follow up and so on, and you can do it with your convenience. Of course, we lack a lot of stuff online, but for our work online is great because you can share code, pictures, everything, discussing. Actually, some online formats are not like that. For example, podcast, and I know we have our own small community of permanent listeners, and I'm thankful to the fact it's growing. It's really good to hear feedback, to see feedback, to see from customers mentioning that they constantly listen to our podcast. That's great. It feels great. But I agree with you. It's like fragmented, a lot of various places, right? There's no big central place. There are quite big places, right? But there's no a single.
Well, maybe we should start there because on the I thought I'd go to the PostgreSQL.org site, and there's one of the top headers is community, and that links to the mailing lists.
Like single community, right?
I guess so. Yeah, I think it's just community with a Y. Yeah, so one community. Yeah. But it links to mailing lists, which I think probably would count as the big hub. Like if you want to say that, like the official online community of Postgres is probably the mailing lists.
Yeah, mailing lists and IRC. I don't remember.
That's the other one.
IRC is like, ooh. And I know they say community, like single community, but I don't feel I belong to this community. You know, we discussed it a few times in the past. I think there is a bigger community, and how I see it, it's different from the definition of this so-called official community, right? So, but you say communities, so many of them, right? I'm closer to you in this understanding. So there are many groups, and they are interconnected. And the single community, it's good. There is such concept, but it's against open source idea, because open source idea there should be many things around, right? So, mailing list I don't like. IRC I don't almost touch. It means this is just form, but there is also content deviation, right? And there are many other places where people live, and I remember times, now it's much less, but I remember times when something was discussed somewhere, and always some people, obviously feeling belonging to the main community, they started saying, oh, it's not the right place to discuss things. You should go to mailing list. My reaction is, obviously if I react as I want to react, you will cut this. out of so I won't react publicly, but I guess our listeners can guess my reaction. If I want to be on Twitter or on Telegram or on Slack, I want to be there. That's it.
I guess it's a bit about like development processes. So when I've got a background of being a product manager, and part of your job as being a product manager is listening to your customers, listening to what people think of your software. And you can encourage them to use the official forums. Maybe your product set has an official way of giving you feedback. But if you want the truth of what people really think of your software, you need to make sure you're also on social media and like looking at mentions of your brand wherever people are talking about it, not just via your official thing. So I think I've seen some of those conversations, and I understand what probably people, whether they say it in a nice way or not, what they're probably trying to say is, if you want the maximum chance of your feedback being listened to constructively and actually some improvements coming off the back of it, you're best off reporting it in the official channels, like the official places. But from the flip side, I've definitely seen a lot of people that have got very high influence in the Postgres development circles hanging out on Twitter, in IRC, on LinkedIn, wherever people are talking about Postgres, their product, and doing that product management kind of role of listening to what issues people are having, listening to what suggestions people have. So while some in the community or communities might encourage like the more constructive places to have that conversation, there are also people listening and interacting in everywhere else as well. So I can see both sides personally.
Yeah, but there are no Postgres managers in this open source project. Yeah, so if some hacker listens to in some place and just picks up the idea, that's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's like just random, right?
Well, I mean, random's a bit. Well, yeah, I see what you mean. It relies a lot on those individual hackers, but that's Postgres development. Postgres development relies like there's no roadmap. There's no we all rely on individual hackers to do various things.
Yeah, and form matters. I don't like email. I don't like IRC. So what? If I prefer, for example, Twitter, and I keep calling it Twitter, and I don't like Elon Musk, and so on. Yeah, but it's just comfort zone. And you mentioned Blue Sky before we decided.
Oh yeah,
so it looks very like Twitter. Yeah.
So I thought I'd bring this conversation up now because I saw a lot of people, a lot of technical folks that I follow on Twitter, on Mastodon. I'm probably the most active. The place I read the most is on Mastodon because I'm seeing some really good technical conversations happening there. A lot of those people are checking out Blue Sky this week, last week. It feels like not necessarily people are switching to it, but a lot of people seem to be checking it out this week. So they've gone from something like 10 million users to about 15 million users in a few
overall
weeks.
Right,
total. So it's still tiny.
So who knows how many of them use Postgres? Maybe just a few.
All I mean is more that it's still tiny. I didn't want this conversation to be about that, but I thought, it's actually a good time to discuss where are the good conversations happening around Postgres. If you want to keep in the loop of what's happening, are you best off having profiles in which ones, which sites should you be checking? These are the kind of questions I had at the beginning and kind of just had to figure it all out myself.
Yeah, I think a lot of good conversations are happening on both in Twitter and LinkedIn. It's just there is critical mass there, and I just feel very comfortable discussing something on Twitter. And I know many hackers also, and just very experienced users, and not only from this Postgres community, from capital C, but also from backend engineering in general, with good experience of Postgres and good problems they observe. They are there and just sharing sometimes ideas. It's super, I feel really comfortable just on Twitter. And I know Slack is huge. It's an official, right? But it's this Slack. I think how many, more than 10,000 people there just for Postgres, and special Slack space, right? And workspace, how is it called? And many discussions and troubleshooting sessions are happening right there. I think it's already kind of a good alternative to IRC, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I definitely am more positive about the mailing lists and IRC than you are. I do find email really helpful, and I still think it's incredible the quality of support you can get on both of those. So as a user, not necessarily as like a so as a hacker, you have to use the mailing list. Like it's
Right.
the way of communicating. But the other mailing lists, the non-hackers ones, so like general, performance, a few others, I find it amazing that you can email the performance mailing list and probably within a day, maybe within a few days, you're hearing back from very, very experienced Postgres hackers about your specific performance question, and it helps if you've done some background and given them really good information to go on. But even the people that don't do that get great advice, or at least encouraged to find out the things they need to be able to be helped, which is unbelievable. Like when you consider that's free support. I think that's incredible. And then IRC is a similar standard. It's not threaded. I love that email's threaded and asynchronous. IRC is like the opposite. It's not threaded and it's very, very synchronous. So I actually when I first joined Postgres, because of, I suspect, this community site, I spent quite a lot of time logged into IRC, watching the conversations as they were happening and asking the odd question myself. And I did learn a lot. There were some extremely experienced people on that are still very active and still help people. But to give you some numbers, there's about 800 people live in the PostgreSQL IRC channel.
How many once again?
800 or 783 right this minute. And there's 24,000 in the PostgreSQL Slack, at the Postgres team Slack.
I'm checking Russian-speaking Postgres Telegram, and it has more than 13,000 members right now and more than 5,000 online.
Oh, wow.
But quality of discussions there, I cannot stay there for more than 10 seconds. Because it's like,
As in, is it beginner level questions?
It's very beginner, a lot like
Yeah.
It's like huge wave of beginners, and they have sometimes emotional discussions, not quality,
Sure.
sometimes collapsing, like clashing at each other and so on. And I can check also English-speaking Telegram groups, which have like a couple of thousand people, maybe less. Yeah. Actually, I created one. It has more than 2,000 members, 165 online, and there is an alternative one, almost 3,000 members, 300 online. And I don't know about the second one, but that one I created, well, it also sometimes not good quality. It's better quality than Russian speaking, but when people share screenshots with poor, like, you cannot understand what's written there, and it's terminal, so like it's just text, but there's screenshot on, or even not screenshot, a picture made from phone.
Yeah.
It's just, and I'll just wait. Maybe someday we will create, GPT API has it. Like we can understand automatically and just transform to text from the picture. Someday we will probably have such bot. But sometimes really interesting discussions, but often no. So I visit this group maybe like once a week.
Yeah. So I personally avoid that. I find these huge channels that are not threaded impossible.
Well, Telegram is like kind of threaded. You can. It's not convenient. It's not like in Slack, right?
In Slack, it's great. Like, I actually find the PostgreSQL Slack, even though there's 24,000 members, there's probably only about, at least in the general channel, there's probably only 5 or 6 new conversations per day. And people have got into a really good habit of replying to those in threads. So if you're interested in a thread, you can post in it or you can get notified of new replies. Most people are familiar with how Slack works. But it means that if you're not interested in a part of a conversation, you can not follow it.
Yeah.
Whereas in Telegram, or if you're in one of these non-threaded environments, you can't avoid it. All you can do is log out for a while, or just not check it for a while, scroll for a while. So I find those quite difficult. But imagine you're a beginner.
Same in email, right? Well, email has topics. I mean, like there are threads, obviously, right? But but sometimes there's huge discussion, and it's hard to there should be some sub threads, right? Some tree. but there is no such thing there. Yeah.
Yeah.
I-
So yeah,
So-
definitely pros and cons, but it's really, I think it's good that there are places that beginners can go to ask questions and get help. It's remarkable that people are willing to help them, but I've got a huge amount of respect for the people that do have the patience for those
I
conversations.
agree. I see people with huge experience. I know these people, and they're still there, like dealing with this storm of new people, with asking. Well, it's just like some people enjoy it, helping others, and I can understand. I can relate. I did it also in the past on Stack Overflow, for example, right? In other place where
Another great place.
another like additional community, right? And if you just like helping people, it's great. Yeah, there is critical mass for sure, and yeah, there are sometimes good discussions even if there are many new users.
Yeah. I actually think I wanted to give Stack Overflow, or at least Stack Exchange. There's a dba.stack exchange as well. That's great. And Reddit, I think I want to put in a similar category because I think they surface answers quite well. So they're quite good at showing up in search results. So if people are using a search engine to ask their basic beginner question, there's a decent chance they'll come across a Stack Overflow post or a Reddit post increasingly that has a good discussion already on the topic, and they maybe then don't have to ask the exact same question again via Telegram or Slack, which don't have as good search, or at least they don't have long histories. Well, actually, maybe Telegram does, but people don't seem to use it.
Yeah, I'm checking Telegram right now, and actually last many days I don't see these pictures of console made on phone. And quite good discussions, and I see people use threads. If Telegram has like kind of virtual threads, it's still like flat, but you can open specific discussion. If people use reply, you can see only like part of it, kind of thread, but not like visually it's not thread, right? So yeah, and I agree with you on Stack Overflow points. I cannot agree on Reddit. Maybe I just have not a lot of experience hanging out there. What about Hacker News?
Just to quickly, let's get to Hacker News. I think Reddit is surprisingly good. Like, I think it's the PostgreSQL Reddit. I'm not talking about Reddit generally, but the PostgreSQL subreddit specifically. There must be some people, and I've set this up recently as well, that subscribe to the RSS feed of new posts to Reddit. Again, there's probably only something in the region of 5 to 10 new posts per day to the Reddit, and some of that is people sharing blog posts and promoting things that they've written or they've found good posts from other people. But a lot of it is beginner level questions, and there are some people, again, some of the same people. are definitely people like, I see Depeche on pretty much all of these helping people out, and that guy has such good patience and is so helpful to people. But people like Sean Thomas in the Discord. There's a Discord as well that has a very similar beginner-friendly vibe. David Johnson. I'm sure there's tons of people that we could give shouts out to. But even on the Reddit, people are replying same day, often within an hour of the post, with very helpful stuff. So it's surprisingly synchronous for an asynchronous channel, a bit like the email thread, a bit like the mailing list, and a bit like Stack Overflow. You can get an answer really quickly for something that's designed to be asynchronous. And then I think they're doing a better and better job of surfacing those questions to people asking the same via Google. So if you're asking the same question someone asked 2 years ago, there's a really good chance you'll still find it via the Reddit. Whereas I don't think that's true. Like on Slack, for example, the history is invisible after a certain number of messages.
30 days if it's not paid. Of course, for 23,000 people, it's not paid because it would cost something.
To give you an idea of volume, in terms of just numbers, there's 47,000 people that have joined the PostgreSQL subreddit. 47,000
over many years, right?
Over many years, yeah.
It's easy. It's super easy to join there because it's not like in Slack you need to like pass through some gateways. There is just a one button follow. That's it.
The Slack one is not necessarily easy to find the invitation link, so I'll post that in the show notes.
Yeah. And what about what about Hacker News? And what about maybe meta threads or some new stuff, some new places?
Well, I actually don't even have I don't have an account on Meta's Threads.
I saw a couple of Postgres folks there, but not active. I think it's not for Postgres yet. And who knows? Well, there are many discussions there, and they push all the time, notifying through Instagram or maybe through Facebook. I don't know. I use Instagram for family pictures, so I see notifications from Thread about different topics, not about Postgres yet.
We're probably the wrong generation for that, but
Yeah.
I definitely only use Instagram for personal stuff rather than for professional things.
What about Hacker
So-
News? It's not social network.
Yes.
It's just single place, right? Topics, random topics. Postgres is on front page. Postgres related topics are very often on front page. And
I think Hacker News is a good place for seeing things that are happening in the tech space in general. But if you relied only on Hacker News for your news around Postgres, I think you'd be missing out on a bunch. I think only certain types of topics do well. They have to be. I don't know quite how to define what it is. It seems to be a certain depth of technical article does really well on there, but not too niche. And also, I think there's maybe like a dev. It's very dev focused rather than DBA. Like it feels very back end or full stack developer crowd. And the
there's
level
many
of,
more of such people around, right? So in general, backend number of backend engineers, it's many more than like database engineers. And there is
for
overlapping, of course.
example, there can be extremely good conversation. I know it gets a bad reputation for the quality of conversation on this in some circles, but sometimes I come across really good conversations there, and sometimes it's people that really know their stuff from the database world popping into Hacker News to help, to answer some questions or to comment on some things.
Yeah, and this is a place where you intersect with other very different communities.
Yeah.
Right? Because you can see people who hate Postgres, they come in to comment. Unlike, I think they don't go to Postgres Slack to comment how they hate Postgres, right?
That's a good
Hacker
point.
News, and even on Reddit, if you don't like, you don't follow, so you don't participate. But on Hacker News, if some topic Postgres related is on front page, obviously some people will comment with some hate speech a little bit, but not often. But in general, obviously, like, people love Postgres in general. This is for sure. But sometimes there are useful grains in these, not hateful speech, but like skepticism. And sometimes you hear people struggle with MVCC design and bloat or something. They just like complain, and these people are quite good, educated, and good engineers. So
Yeah.
it's like it's Hacker News is a place where you can hear people struggling with some issues Postgres still has, and this cannot be ignored, right? So this is the place where the people express in very good technical form what's the problem.
Yeah. And I would add Twitter to that as well as a place where you can
Intersection.
get that. Exactly.
And LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn.
Yes. Although I've seen less of it on LinkedIn for some reason. I don't see that much negativity about Postgres on LinkedIn for some reason. Maybe just the people I'm connected to.
Maybe LinkedIn just deprioritize negative stuff and just prioritize positive stuff, right? And people just congratulate with every step in career all the time. This is what LinkedIn is, right? Like, what a great post! So everything's so good. This is just corporate style,
But true, it is more positive stuff, isn't it? That is a good point.
Yeah, but I like to find problems and think about them. So, yeah.
I think most of these communities are not great for self-promotion, but LinkedIn is one where promoting your own stuff is encouraged and it's very much part of the culture. So I actually think that might be worth knowing if you're looking to be able to promote your own blog posts or your own videos and things. That is a great
build a
place to do it.
reputation, right? To build a reputation as an expert, LinkedIn, I think, is a good way to gather attention, and
Yeah, true.
Share ideas, collect feedback. Yeah, but I would expect true feedback not on LinkedIn, on Twitter maybe, because on LinkedIn, well, I don't know, maybe just like some overall impression But yeah, what else? There are sometimes unexpected communities. Discussions. For example, remember we discussed limitations of Analyze single-threaded and how to run it in multiple threads, and I created how to. It's still this merge request on GitLab is still not merged, right? Because suddenly we started having discussions there, and a couple of folks chimed in and started sharing experiences, right? And it's interesting because new things appeared, and I explore new things. For example, this post-upgrade analyze of partition tables turned out neither VacuumDB nor AutoVacuum take care about root partition tables. They don't update statistics at all. If you run it manually, it's updated both for individual partitions and main like root table. But VacuumDB doesn't do it, and it means post-upgrade, if you do need these statistics, you need to, additionally to VacuumDB, you need additional single-threaded analyze on partition tables. It's like kind of interesting, right? And there is no analyze only, so if you run on partition tables, it will scan also partitions. So it's like some rabbit hole I didn't expect at all. And these discussions are happening still in merge request, and they are threaded. It's like commenting particular piece of my write-up. It's definitely threaded on GitHub and on GitLab. It's very convenient.
It doesn't surprise me that is happening there, because it's great for sharing code and for being specific. And you can write a really long, if your comment is best communicated as a very long piece of writing, that's easy. On Twitter, that's trickier. You don't have code formatting, and there's like a few subtleties of that being much easier to communicate clearly on some of these other forums.
Yeah, so what I think is to get I have almost 100 how-tos written, like started year ago, and then I had marathon lasting 3 months or so. So I'm thinking to create a book, online, free book, constantly growing on GitHub, GitLab, maybe on both, and having community around it. Some small community, people who want to have good run books, how-tos, how to analyze at full speed, for example. VacuumDB and like number of cores, what to think about, and so on. Like this is a simple task at first glance, but turned out not so simple. Yeah, things not to forget. And I just need to structure these recipes, and I'm very curious what people think. Let's test it. Let's test if we have community. I ask people who listen to this until this point, please comment somewhere. If you listen on YouTube, there is comment section below, as always people say. But if it's podcast, just Twitter, or I use Twitter, so you can just comment there, because we have PostgreSFM account on Twitter, right?
Well, yeah, but if anybody else was thinking of starting a podcast around this, I think if you'd asked me in week 1, would I recommend doing it to YouTube as well, I wouldn't have been that fussed. I would have thought it's not that big a deal. Most people are going to listen to your podcast via the audio stream, so it doesn't matter that much. But we would have missed out on so many comments. It's the barrier to leaving somebody some feedback via a podcast, via an audio-only podcast. It's hassle. You have to look it up, or you have to write a review. And it's always tricky. It's always a little bit of extra work. The barrier to writing a comment when you're watching a video on YouTube is so low that we get the vast majority, even though most of our listeners don't listen on YouTube, the vast majority of our feedback and comments come on YouTube.
Yeah.
So
my ask is to go to postgres.tv. It will redirect to YouTube channel, and where we also publish PostgreSFM podcast. And under this episode, please comment if you think it's a good idea, because I'm thinking for some time, and I just need understanding that it will be useful for other folks, because I'm not doing it for myself. For myself, I already wrote a lot of stuff. Right, I want to publish for free and see if this resonates and is actually useful. This like bunch of how-tos. Yeah.
I don't know if I have to leave a comment on YouTube, but I would find that useful.
Good. +1. Yeah.
Yeah, +1. I think, and maybe I have a bias here, but I've seen places kind of try to encourage community involvement before, and it's been a little like sometimes where you have these discus things, or you have like I think there's a site I like by the team at Ongress called PostgreSQLCO.nf, and that has a whole section for comments, but either nobody does or the quality of the comments are dubious. So maybe some kind of, I don't know how you would encourage comments or and also moderate them for quality and things.
It's a
tricky.
good topic. Our website, PostgreSQL website and blog section doesn't have comments. There is a request and there is demand for comments. People ask from time to time. My idea is discourse and all the approach to comments doesn't work. This morning I wanted, we discussed a topic about query ID and auto-explain and the fact that on Aurora it didn't work, and then it turned out that it was Postgres 15. And I saw a blog post on AWS blog, and there are a couple of comments there asking why it doesn't work. And I wanted to leave a comment sharing my finding, which I think, thank you, actually comes from you, that it starts working only since Postgres 16. I spent 20 minutes asynchronously trying to register there and create AWS Builder account. I have Builder account, but they say it's already blocked. I just created it. Why it's blocked? For violation of something. So these comments don't work. And also I feel the urge to create something new here, but I don't know what. We just discussed that there are sometimes comments in merge requests or pull requests, and they are very contextual, right? They belong to some part of the text of the code. And what if you publish an article? Normal thing is, I think you also have it. Source code is already published on GitHub, for example, right? Sometimes even there is an edit button to propose correction of typo. Also, not many people do it, right? But what if the discussion would be coming from GitHub or something and related to code? I don't know. It's a job of GitLab to provide some snippet, so I could embed into my website and have a discussion, maybe leading to some corrections or additions to the text in improving it. So this is something I'm thinking, but it doesn't exist yet. GitHub doesn't provide it. GitLab doesn't provide it. Maybe it's a good idea for them to consider. For those who keep Markdown, for example, there on GitHub or GitLab, and then it's published in form of blog post, right? Because if you have discourse, it's disconnected from everything, right? Well, I don't know. On Depeche.com comments work, right?
Yeah, same on my blog.
Yeah. Oh, great. What do you use for?
I think. I'm embarrassed. I use Squarespace for that blog. Yeah,
Okay.
but it works. But I like having comments enabled, but I also like to be able to moderate them. If someone leaves a spam link in them, need to delete it. If someone, so they are important, and I actually find them quite energizing. Most comments are really positive. Some people just saying thank you for writing a post that's helped them. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's quite nice, and it's also quite nice for other people to then read that it helped others. I think that's quite almost makes you feel like other people have actually come across the same issues as you, that kind of thing. Community stuff.
Yeah, so anyway, folks who listen to us, please leave a comment on YouTube and say if you think it's a good idea to have my how-tos published in different form, in form of book, online book. And also just say simple words if you consider this podcast useful. We need it. Right.
Do you know, actually something I didn't even think to bring up was I've seen, both of us have done it, but I've seen you have quite a lot of success with this, polls on certain social media.
Oh yeah, on Twitter. So, it works on Twitter very well, yeah.
And I think LinkedIn quite well as well. People are way more likely to be able to answer a poll than to answer a question on some of these sites.
Yeah.
And it can be really helpful. I know it's biased. I know.
I like polls. Yeah, well, it always depends on, you can influence it, choosing proper language and options you can influence. But I mostly consider it more like fun, but sometimes good insight.
Yeah, that's cool. But the bias thing, I actually didn't mean as much the wording, which can definitely sway. Survey design and stuff is another topic. But I actually meant biased because who does it reach? Like it reaches your followers and then depends a
Yeah.
lot on who likes it, retweets it, that kind of thing,
Of course.
as to who it's even reaching. So, for example, if you with your followers asking a question about PostgreSQL versus MySQL, it would unlikely be a representative poll.
It is so. It is so. But this is my small world, and I like it, and I'm curious what people around my Twitter account think. This is like what I'm most interested. I'm not interested in people who just like very far and like MySQL users and like what they think about PitchDump. Although sometimes we have intersections as well, and quite often CEO of PlanetScale chimes in asking something about Postgres, so it's interesting.
Which, by the way, that's incredible, right? That we can be having a conversation online, and the CEO of PlanetScale.
Well, I don't have such how to say perception. So CEO, so what? It's good that I mean it's good that I'm dealing with himself, not with his assistant. Because sometimes, democracy works in the US, for example, but I cannot reach the director of my daughter's elementary school because she sends assistant to organize Zoom call and doesn't respond to emails for 2 weeks.
There you go.
Yeah, well, I just appreciate when any level of manager, they just go and talk directly. It's great.
And listen to users. Yeah. Whether or not it's listening is another question, I guess. Actually, before we wrap up, I had a couple of others just quick. They're not really communities, but I realized when you mentioned Hacker News, it was kind of like a little bit of staying in touch with what's happening. And I realized I actually rely on I guess one's relatively community driven, which is Planet Postgres, which is a blogging syndication platform. That's kind of a community site in a way. Lots of people from non-official sources posting about Postgres, and I find that an extremely helpful way of staying in the loop of what people are thinking about, what issues people are hitting, what products people are building, that kind of thing. And on a similar vein, especially if you don't want to follow all of those, Postgres Weekly is a good newsletter for like what are the highlights this week from the Postgres world.
Yep.
Is there anything else in that kind of vein that you'd point people towards?
Well, I don't think newsletters are communities because you don't have follow-up discussion there. But yeah, I agree. It's good source of what's happening.
Yeah, true. Any last advice or things for people?
Well, thank you for all who are listening to us. We will just very interesting topics are coming, I must say. Stay tuned. Yeah.
I like that I'm going to consider that a performance pun.
Performance tuned as well.
Stay tuned. Yeah, exactly.
Good.
All right, take care. Thanks a lot, Nikolai.
Thank you.
Speak
Bye.
to you soon. Bye.